Welcome, everybody. This is Lars Leicht from the Tasting Panel magazine. Thrilled to have you all here for our Spirits, Back to Spirit School educational webinar. And today's theme is Rock Stars of Rum. This is brought to you by the Tasting Panel, Liars Non-Alcoholic Spirits, and FIU's Bacardi Center of Excellence. And we have a fantastic panel with you. A lot of rock stars all around, rock stars of different shades and colors. So Rock Stars of Rum. This is being recorded. It is live on Facebook. It will be on the Tasting Panel magazine website as well. And the recap in editorial form, our written article will be in the November-December issue of Tasting Panel magazine. So make sure to check that out. And if you don't have a subscription, send us an email, let us know, throw it up in the chat room. We invite all of our guests to join us in the chat room. Any questions you have, throw those right up there, either to the panel or to individual presenters, and we'll be thrilled to address any points, questions, or suggestions you might have. So we're talking about rum. Rum has a medieval history, believe it or not. In the 7th century, physicians used rum. The King of Cyprus brought some rum to the Congress of Krakow in 1364. Marco Polo talked about discovering a sugar wine as he traveled through what is basically today Iran and Persia. But really, rum comes onto its own from the 1600s in the Caribbean. And we have with us Professor Brian Connors from FIU, who is an expert on the Caribbean because he gets down there often enough. And he's done some pirating too. So Brian, tell us a little bit about that.
Man. So, I'm impressed, Uncle Lars. I'm impressed there. That was great. That's good. But yeah, the history alone on rum is great. And it's one of those things that as soon as you get the spice in you, if you will, and I have a wonderful Bacardi spice here with me as well, and again, it comes in different styles. So I'm going to be really excited to hear about the different styles from each one of our panelists today. But again, I always fell in love with the history and the stories and how it brought it back to the sea, and then how it was used for trade, and how a lot of the early day colonies in the U.S. market survived with their relationships and with the trade in the Caribbean. And that's where all these different rums and how they're spelled and how they're made came to play, though. But, we also got the spirits professor himself, Professor Nathan Eugene Dodge.
Professor Dodge, our spirits professor, welcome aboard. I was going to talk a little bit about Connors just touched on the fact that spirits in the colonial era, in the 18th and 19th centuries, if you wanted to be a successful presidential candidate, you had to be seen providing rum to the people at your rallies and drinking rum with them.
Wow.
It was a people's drink. So that was cool.
You did your homework. I'm very impressed.
Man, I love history, and I
love that
about history. Well, my question for Professor Dodge, who's going to talk to us a little bit about that. I have two questions for you. First question is, what's the best vessel to drink a rum out of? Should I be doing a rocks glass? Should I be doing my whiskey glass? Should I be doing my grappa glass or a snifter? What are those and the other rules involved around rum?
Well, and hi, I am Nathan Dodge, Professor Dodge. I'm from Florida International University, and thank you, Lars, for inviting me. As far as rules go, one of the great things about rum is rules are made to be broken. There aren't a lot of rules. If we start talking things like bourbon has to be made in the United States, has to be made with 51% corn. If we talk about vodka, it needs to be distilled to a certain percentage. If we're talking scotch, it needs to be made in Scotland. Rum's one of those cool things that, pirates made it, so pirates drank it, and pirates made the rules. And, the number one rule is there are no rules. As long as we're making this from a sugar derivative, we're good. Today, I'm drinking a beautiful rum from Haiti and French Islands. They're using sugarcane juice. Why are you giving a dirty look, Uncle Lars?
I'm not. I'm impressed.
So they're using sugarcane juice. You're going to get a lot more.
Assuming you're not teaching after this class.
I am not. I'm already at home. But if we start looking more at either British style rums or Spanish style rums, now we're using more molasses based. And really anything that is coming out of sugarcane can be used to make rum. As far as what you're drinking out of really is going to depend on you. I have had rum out of a snifter. I've had rum. Today I'm drinking it out of a beautiful Riedel single malt glass. I've had rum out of a red Solo cup. And honestly, it does
Now that
make a
song is
difference.
in my mind, but go ahead.
I know, and that's what I was trying to do. When you're drinking it neat or on the rocks, the better the vessel is, you're going to get some more flavors. And I use, again, the Riedel single malt because this glass is actually perfectly designed to put single malt whiskeys right at the correct point on your tongue, and it does a wonderful job. The same thing with rum, so that's why I was using that. If you're using a grappa glass or a rocks glass, you're fine. I won't judge you. If you show up at a barbecue at my house, and I will serve rum, so maybe I should run for president, you might get it in a red Solo cup.
I like that. Professor of the people, thank you very much. And another point about rum, I know it was issued to the Royal Navy for centuries, stopped about 1970. They called it splicing the main brace when they decided to go to rum. And the last time that happened, actually, here's another historical point, was in the 2010 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Navy. The Queen issued the order. Now, there might have been a naval revolt at the time, if that rum was non-alcoholic. But Kyle Billings from Liars, tell us about the virtues of non-alcoholic rum-like drinks, please, spirits.
Thanks, Lars. What an intro. First off, I'm just blown away by the wealth of information I've already received 2 minutes in. This is fantastic. Well done, everyone. Looking forward to hearing all about the different styles of rum. Liars is just welcoming everybody to that party, whether you drink or not. So that's really the key here. As you guys have mentioned, rum has a rich history, and my favorite part of that is kind of how that evolved into these incredibly iconic but diverse and depth of cocktails that you can create from rum. So that's what's fascinating for me and fascinating for the Liars team. We have 3 separate rum variants, which Maria Denton will go into. Those include the dark cane spirit, the white cane spirit, and the spice cane spirit. And whether it's a Hemingway or a cable car or a painkiller or a jungle bird, my personal favorite, you can create this incredibly rich depth of cocktails from rum, and then from the Liars range as well. So I'm excited to hear more about the history and just how you can use it from the rest of the panelists.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kyle. So on that note, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Maria Denton, CWE, CSW, CSS. A lot of impressive initials there, Maria. A lot of us know Maria principally as a sommelier. She was the wine and spirits director for Old Ebbitt Grill and the Hamilton. She worked for a lot of amazing wholesalers and was also former director of the Society of Wine Educators. So it's fun to see you in this very new spirited role of yours with Liars, Maria. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Here I am drinking my mojito. Every bartender hates making mojitos, right? Something about muddling. But you can't beat a mojito for just something refreshing on a really hot day. And it's really hot here in the DC area, I got to tell you. But see, I can drink this guilt-free. You know why? Because it's made with Liars non-alcoholic spirits. I'm really happy to be working in this new category and with this brand. And our founder, Mark Livings, in 2017, had a question in his mind, and it was really, how can we stay social and have a sophisticated cocktail without compromising quality? And that was the idea that birthed Liars. So we've been around since 2019. And as Kyle mentioned, we have 3 iterations of rum so far. We're always working on new iterations because rum is one of those categories that's just so interesting. And so the depth and the breadth of rum that's out there is just really, really amazing. And the best thing about including Liars in this is that I'm not cannibalizing off of anybody else's business. And when you're thinking of putting together a really good bar program, and this is one of the things that when I was at the Ebbitt that we did, and we were one of the first in DC to really do this in a big way, is we wanted to have choices on our menu so that for whatever somebody's reasons for not drinking, they would have a sophisticated cocktail option. And Liars, because of the depth and breadth of their portfolio, was the one that allowed us to do that. So I really love working with this brand. Helps us all have the freedom to have our drink our way. Because honestly, I'm still a drinker. You guys, those of you who know me, you know that probably won't ever change. But sometimes I want another cocktail, but I know I shouldn't have another cocktail. And Liars is perfect for that, because you know what? It looks like a cocktail, it tastes like a cocktail, and I even get a little bit of a placebo effect when I drink it, because I'm holding a cocktail in my hand. So I feel more relaxed, I feel more social, and nobody has to know but me that I'm not drinking. So, and even the bottles, you know, as I pour the bottles, like right now, I'm gonna make a Pina Colada. You know why? Because Pina Coladas are delicious, and I'm kind of a child of those old school tiki drinks, and nobody makes Pina Coladas anymore. And if you go to a bar, sometimes they roll their eyes. I'm actually going to make this one a little bit skinny though. I've used 2 ounces of our Liars spiced cane spirit, and I'm going to use 1.5 ounces. I like to use the pressed coconut milk instead of coconut water. Coconut water, you see a lot of skinny Pina Coladas made with coconut water. To me, it's just a little too thin. So I've got 1.5 ounces of that. Got 1.5 ounces of fresh pineapple juice. If you can juice your own, oh my gosh, so good. And to that, one of the things you'll notice is I'm going to shake this and you'll hear it right away. There's no ice in there. Like, I don't know if you can hear that. There's no ice in there. The reason why is because one of the things that's particular when you make drinks with Liars is we don't want the dilution. Alcohol, you want to kind of ease that burn a little bit. And so as you're mixing it or you're chilling it down, a lot of times you'll shake it with ice and then pour it over new ice. I'm starting with cold Liars. I'm starting with cold ingredients, and I'm just going to pour it right into my glass. And because I'm fancy, speaking of what glass do you drink it out of? Yeah. I'm going to drink my skinny Pina Colada out of a wine glass.
Nice.
I am a sommelier. I have plenty of these Riedel wine glasses. And I've just made it fancy. I kind of wanted to feel like I was drinking it out of a pineapple, so I've lined the glass with pineapple slices. I've got my little pineapple leaf here. So I'm going to sit here and have my drink my way and listen to you all talk about rum. And I can't wait to learn some things that maybe I didn't know already.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maria. Looks good. I was getting a little jealous of you there sipping on your mojito, but
if I could send you one, I would, Lars. You know I would.
All right. I'll have to, not that far of a drive from DC to New York. But it's an even closer drive to Park Slope, Brooklyn, where our next rock star, aka Hada, is coming to us. Hada is national brand ambassador for Bacardi Rum. She is one of the up and coming new celebrated talents in the industry. She's spent 9 years behind the bar at some iconic places, including PDT and Dante in New York City. And she leads the apprentice program at Tales of the Cocktail. So welcome, AK.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very excited to be on this panel. I started with Bacardi, I guess now about 3 to 4 months ago. But my journey with rum is, very storied. I think when I think of Bacardi, I feel like Bacardi is kind of like the Godfather. Everybody knows of it, but like, have you really seen it? And when's the last time you saw it? And how much do you remember it? So, it's this incredibly recognizable brand, but when you really go back through the story, what I have started to really preach is, what makes Bacardi Bacardi? What makes it different from Santa Teresa and Diplomatico and all these other beautiful rums we're going to hear about? So first off, the story of Bacardi starts off in 1862 by Don Facundo Bacardi and Dona Amalia, his wife. If many of you don't know, Bacardi is still a completely family-owned company. It's something that I think is really special, and it definitely, you see it in the pride that we take as a company and a lot of the decisions that we make. So Don Facundo was an immigrant to Cuba in the 1830s and 40s, met Dona Amalia. They married through a series of catastrophic events, global pandemic, we all know about that now. They actually had to move back to Spain and then back to Cuba. they found their grocery that they ran as a couple sacked, and they had to start all over. And that's where his journey with rum begins. And at this time, the two biggest markets for rum were actually in Jamaica and Martinique. So those islands, what we know of, those styles of rum are going to be fuller, they're going to be funkier, full of flavor. And what Bacardi really set out to do was to pioneer a new style of rum that was going to be lighter, drier, and better for mixing. Now there's many of these out on the market, but at that time, this is, you know, why, again, I want to go into the techniques that Bacardi pioneered to kind of create this category of rum as it exists today. So give me just one moment. I'm going to share my screen.
Great.
So thank you very much. So I'm just going to go to this production slide here because I think it's really wonderful. You know, again, this was a brand new category at the time in the 1860s, and really there was three techniques that make Bacardi Bacardi. You know, I think with rum, as opposed to other spirits, say with gin, it's a little bit more linear. You know, you can say, okay, I have this botanicals, this distillation style, so it's going to taste like this. With rum, there's not necessarily that clear-cut answer. It's more nuanced, which is why it's maybe more difficult, but also very exciting to talk about as a category. So again, the first thing we have to talk about, what is rum? No matter where you are, rum is sugarcane, water, and yeast. Some kind of byproduct of sugarcane, water, and yeast. The majority of that flavor development you're going to get is going to be in the fermentation process. So something that Facundo pioneered, we call the levadura Bacardi. He was one of the first spirits producers in the world at this time to isolate a strain of yeast. So if we think San Francisco sourdough versus bread you can buy in the grocery store, this is isolated and consistent yeast. This was huge technology for the 1860s. Being able to isolate a strain of yeast from the sugarcane fields in Cuba and culture it so that it can be used again and again. This is going to create a consistent flavor profile for your product. So La Levadura Bacardi is the first pioneering technique. The second is actually, we see here two different distillates. So at Bacardi, we actually create a heavy distillate and a light distillate. The heavy distillate now we use in column still, but something, you know, that's pretty debated and talked about is, oh, you can't get a heavy distillate from a column still. But the thing that we try to emphasize is that a still is just a tool. And depending on how you use that still and how you, you know, how many plates you're using, we can certainly go nerdy in the comment section if you want about, you know, how a column still functions. But we are able to create a heavy distillate here and then a light distillate, redestilado, that is run through a series of columns. If you look here, we can see some of the columns that as they've been used throughout Bacardi over the years. So this is what it looks like today. This is the heavy column distillate. So that is the second technique, actually creating two spirit bases. The final product is then blended together, and then it's intentionally aged and charcoal filtered. At this time, we had aged rums, and we knew that charcoal filtering could strip away or refine flavors. So if you had imported a bunch of fish in an oak barrel, we knew in the 1860s that you could char that barrel and then put wine in it and reuse that barrel. So we already knew the power of charcoal. But this is actually one of Bacardi's most heavily guarded secrets, is their charcoal recipe. We actually make Havana Club and Bacardi at the same distillery, but they definitely are two distinct products because they have, I mean, a number of different techniques, but because of the charcoal filtration. So what that does after it's aged for at least 1 year, has to be aged for at least 1 year to be called a Puerto Rican rum where it's made today. And then charcoal filtered is, we're not trying to strip it of flavor, but refine it for mixability in cocktails, all the classic cocktails that we think of, these days, a daiquiri, a mojito, as you mentioned, Pina Colada. All of these cocktails were created on Bacardi. So it's not to say that this is the best rum, but to me, it is the benchmark. Now we have, again, a variety of different products that we can all choose from, and you can create your own opinions. But I strongly encourage you, to go back and rewatch The Godfather, try tasting that Bacardi Superior on its own, because it will surprise you, its depth of flavor. And here you see our whole Bacardi range. Of course, we've talked about Superior, but the combination of techniques that we use, the isolated yeast strain, the two separate distillates, the way we blend it, the way we age it, the manner in which we charcoal filter it. You can see here just in Bacardi, the variety that you can get for one spirit brand, let alone one spirit category. So I'm sure you're going to hear from the other guests here and panelists what makes their rum special. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Looking forward to answering any of your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, AK. Perfect timing as well. Appreciate that very much. So we've been talking a lot about the Caribbean, and but a lot of rum comes from around, first of all, around the world, as I said earlier, but also a key source of rum is Venezuela. And our next speaker, Jose Luis Palesteros, was born in Venezuela, studied wine and spirits in France, worked throughout the EU, returned to Venezuela and worked in the South American market. And now he is based in Florida as a brand ambassador for Diplomatico rum, and he represents the fourth generation of his family in the spirits business. So welcome, Jose.
Señor, that is a cool intro. You should pass it to me. So how are you guys? I'm Jose Ballesteros, and I represent Diplomatico rum, like Lars mentioned. So Diplomatico is a brand that have a lot to say from every angle on this business, actually, on the alcohol business. But I'm gonna be focused on cover on these 7 minutes what made Diplomatico different in terms of the elaboration process. Also, I will talk to you a little bit about the category and our style for sure. So I'm gonna share the screen right now. Beginning with Diplomatico can you see the screen now?
Yep, you just got to bring it up to presenter mode and we're good.
Perfect.
Excellent, perfect.
So Diplomatico is a Venezuelan rum. And the way to approach Diplomatico, you have to understand rum as a category, as being a very versatile spirit, though. Where you have rums or where you have brands that they are highlight when you mix it with some specific flavor. You have other brands that are meant to be drink neat or on the rocks. It's when you get the most out of that spirit, though. Diplomatico, that's the spirit of Diplomatico. It's being a sipping rum. Even in our youngest and mixer expression, is a sipping rum by his property and characteristic. And you can split the category right now in that way. Aged rum sipping styles to mixing style. Somebody mentioned it briefly, but in terms of the category, here in the US or compared to Europe, where the category of sipping is more developed, in 2018, we was honored to be recognized as a Spirit Brand of the Year. And beyond being a huge honor for us and what that represents, tell us it was a clear sign where the category of sipping rum is today in the US market. Like in other category like tequila, vodka, gin, premium is driving the growth, and age and sipping, it's what getting the attention of the consumer, though. So to understand better rum, and like some people have mentioned today, there is not like global regulation or that's part of the beauty also of rum, that similar to wine is produced in every country and every island where you have sugar cane, you can produce rum, but you also have different styles. So in order to understand more about the style of the rum, it's important, or you should know where it's coming from, and how it's produced. So Venezuela, being a South American country, we are considered also a Caribbean country. We have the longest Caribbean coast in the region. But also in terms of rum, we are one of the few countries to have a DOC. There is some country that have some regulation for the production of rum. Venezuela, we have a DOC, which is an international certification, let's say so, like for wine, for champagne, even for tequila. So our DOC mainly is based, all the raw material has to be 100% local. Either sugarcane molasses, sugarcane honey. You cannot import alcohol or the raw material to produce rum. Also, the alcohol proof has to be between 80 and 100 proof of 40 and 50 ABV. So this is a clear example, like Jamaican rum, they're famous or they're popular for being overproof rum. 100 proof, 120, and so on. That's a style, and super fun style. According to our regulation, we cannot call that style rum. So in our regulation will be something like rum liquor or aguardiente de rum. So, and the most important part of our DOC is the aging. Every rum that is labeled rum of Venezuela, you have the certification that that rum is being aged at least 2 years in white oak. Could be new or could be used, but they have to be aged at least 2 years in white oak. So far we have Diplomatico as a reference of sipping rum. It's a Venezuelan rum. Venezuela is one of the few countries to have a DOC for the production of rum, based on minimum 2 years in white oak, 100% local raw materials, and being aged at least 2 years in, 80 and 100, right? The other thing about understanding the product, the rum that you're drinking, is where it's come from, how it's made, and how it's aging. So, like the previous expo talk about column distillation, there is a wide varietal of rum or of brand that are made from column still. Also, some Caribbean rums like Barbados, Jamaica again, Martinique, they're produced out of copper pot still distillation, though. Classic or more popular on single malt and whiskey product. Diplomatico, and this is where we get like very, not technical, but this is a key differentiation point for us. We are a blend rum. So we are the only rum producer to have 3 different distillation systems under the same roof. So we have column still, a French design that is called Barbet. Originally, it was made for the production of Armagnac. Then we have something that is very rare, which is a batch kettle. Nobody in the rum industry have a batch kettle. A batch kettle is a Canadian design that is a hybrid still. So this still combine pot and combine column still. So in terms of terminology, you get alcohol, semi-heavy alcohol out of the batch kettle. And then of course, what we call that is the soul of Diplomatico is the pot still alambic. We have copper pot still over 150 years old, bringing from Scotland, installed in our distillery in 1959. So how it works, after the fermentation, you distill through column still and you put that rum to age. You distill from batch kettle and you put that rum to age. You distill through pot still and you put that rum to age. Then the master blender, he decides when the rum is ready and he put it together in different proportion in order to create the traditional range of Diplomatico rums. So when you see Diplomatico Reserva Exclusiva, the green bottle, that is a blend of, and it's in my next chart, and how the proportional works. So for instance, Mantuano, the rum to the left, the orange label, is the mixing rum of Diplomatico, but it's a rum that is being aged for 8 years, and the blend is 60% rum from Barbet, from column, and 40% rum from batch kettle. Diplomatico Planas, which is the blue label, a white aged rum, because in order to be rum, you have to be aged. and it's white because we charcoal filter. Otherwise, it will be more like an amber color. So Planas is a rum that is aged for 6 years, charcoal filter to remove the color, 97 proof, and the blend of 50% rum from pot still, 50% rum between batch kettle and column. And Ambassador, Exclusiva, the green bottle, what I'm drinking right now, is 80% rum from the copper pot still, 20% rum from the batch kettle. These rum are aged in ex-bourbon and some ex-whiskey barrels. So then we have another portfolio that is called the Prestige range, which are not blended, are 100% rum from pot still, but we age in two different barrels. We age in ex-bourbon for 12 years, and then 1 year, or in the case of Ambassador, 2 years in cherry cask to finish the product.
Let's see. Thank you. I'm sorry we're short on time.
That's it.
Fantastic. Well done.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Beautiful rum. As I understand it, Venezuela was also an important source of sugarcane for the Caribbean too, for a lot of rums. So that's great. So next up, our next rock star, as Jose unshares his screen, is John Meisler, who is VP of Sales for Cerales USA, representing Don Q. John comes from an old New Orleans culinary family. He's a renowned wine, beer, and spirits educator, founding executive board member of the U.S. Bartenders Guild Master Accreditation Program. That's quite a task. It's quite a mouthful, actually, too. But what John has a lot of fun specializing in fusing Puerto Rican rums into the already exciting New Orleans cuisine. So, John, welcome. Tell us what you got going on. You're on mute, though.
That'll mess me up. Hey, it's really exciting to be here. This is truly a panel of rock stars, and to be part of it's very, very exciting. You know, the interesting thing, the fun thing is, so many people have covered a lot of the things we would talk about. So it makes it interesting. We can focus on different aspects of our rums. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward, if I might, and let's just get started. So I'm going to share something, if we can. I'm getting there. Come on. And as you can see, you know, without question, I'm going to take a look at the rock star concept of this. And at the end of the day, you know, what I want to talk about is, what is a rock star? Why are we even here talking about rock stars? Well, Merriam-Webster says a rock star is a personality or celebrity or a singer, someone that is famous, someone that's a performer, and someone that, and I'm going to read this, celebrities inspiring fanatical admiration. And I think that's perfect for so many of the people we even have on the call today, both presenters and audience alike, because, you know, and when you think about it, and you look at these pictures on the screen, rock stars appeal to a wide range of audiences. And one of the things that makes a difference is that they appeal over time. These faces on this screen will be impactful 50 years from now. So while there's, they were 50 years ago when they started, and they're still impactful today. So I think we're going to take that as sort of the play as we get into this. But as I said, rock stars, they can withstand that test of time. We've already seen two different styles or genres, if you will, right? There's also genres when you talk about aged spirits in general. Or not, right? So there's categories, there's the genres, there's the styles. And what we're going to talk about today is how this just appeals across that range. So why? You know, why are we saying rock stars? How does that tie? How do these tests apply to something like Don Q rum? Well, much like AK talked about in Cuba, Don Q's been making rum in Puerto Rico since 1865, sort of on a parallel venture. It's the original Puerto Rican rum, and we call it, we talk about the Spanish colonial style, which you see in Cuba and Puerto Rico, typically. It's that light, classic, somewhat complex. We hang our hats on things like aging and blending. They tend to be a little bit lighter, and much like some of the other brands we'll talk about today, we use different methods to get us there. You know, we have our own AOC, let's say, our own rules in Puerto Rico, 1 year to be called a Puerto Rican rum. So there is some true laws there that do affect how we do it. And then finally, back to the heritage and the authenticity and the quality, our namesake, Don Quixote. He was on a quest, much like the Serralles family was on a quest when they moved to the New World in the 1830s to start growing sugar. That 150 years of rum making is what gives us, puts us in a position to face some of the things that I'll talk about in just a second, because it's a challenging time for molasses-based and all rums. We're a classic molasses-based rum, like I talked about. We use a combination of blackstrap molasses, which tends to be the third, fourth, or more extraction of sugar, boiling, if you would, if we look at old times. And we also use what we call high test, that first full of sugar boiling or extraction. In this point in time, it's kind of hard to pick and choose what you want to get because molasses is under a lot of fire. It's being used for fuel out of many places. Matter of fact, the climate and droughts have caused a problem getting the molasses we need. So what we have to do is find ways using science to keep our rum as consistent as possible. So we have to use a lot of different ways, including pasteurization, to remove certain bacteria and do things that we need to do so today's rum tastes just like yesterday's, even with different molasses coming in. And then finally, or not finally, the second piece is the distillation. And much like we discussed earlier, we use an old single column still that dates back to Prohibition. That's a whiskey still, that's copper line. Well, guess what? The inefficiencies of that still are beautiful because it leaves the congeners and flavors and we create our heavy rums with that. Then we have a 6-column continuous still that science takes over there and we're able to create a very neutral yet rummy product. It's that balance of neutrality and rumminess that makes the difference. And then that 150 years of Serralles house style takes over. Our rock stars are often the blenders, much like a fine cognac house, because it's all about taking those heavy rums and light rums and creating that final product. Well, so what are some of the differences, right? When we talk about our rums, we like to think we don't just play in the arena of rum. Particularly our age, and I'm focusing a little bit on our age today. Our Reserva 7, I think is, you'll see in a second, and our Grand Reserva, they play in this category. If you think about it, they're distilled like a bourbon in those column stills. We actually use, as I mentioned, a heavy still. They're aged like a whiskey, right? In American oak barrels. We're actually blending like a fine cognac. We're finishing often in sherry casks for Solera, as well as sherry cask finished rums. And that doesn't sound like the rum of old, right? That doesn't sound like trash can punch, like so many people thought of. So, and we don't add any sugar. No sugar is added to our rum. So we compete against this wide variety of fine aged spirits. We open up the door to the people that drink Pappy's and Remy and Louis and all those other things and bring them to the table to enjoy rum. And hopefully we're a good starting place to do that. I'm going to keep going. So we talk about, I mentioned our Reserva 7, which is brand new to us. This was the first rum we've ever put a number on because the ages have always tended to be a little bit of an American thing, a US based thing, but this means the youngest drop of rum in this bottle is 7 years old. And then we have our Grand Reserva, which used to be known as the artist that was known as Grand Añejo. We changed a little bit, but we kept the same rums, made them a little older, 9 to 12 years in those bourbon barrels, blended with some Solera aged rum that are up to 50 years old. Hold on, my timer's gone off. So yep. just like with the with the Reserva 7, we talked about whiskey styles, perfect for Manhattans as well as your rum cocktails. And the Grand Reserva, because of that exquisiteness from the Solera, makes a perfect old fashioned. So that's really where we are. Like a true rock star, we think we appeal to genres and ages of all types. Whiskey lovers, Scotch lovers, cognac lovers, and of course, always rum connoisseurs. And I'm done. Thanks for having me.
Bravo. Thank you, John. I can see how you earned your reputation as a fantastic educator and a rock star in your own right.
Thank you.
So there are rock stars and there are stars of stage and screen. And we also have an Emmy Award winner with us, Bailey Pryor, founder and CEO of The Real McCoy. He's been writing, producing, and directing film and television for over 25 years, has 7 feature films, over 150 television programs for ABC, PBS, Discovery Channel, a lot of those different channels in there, and is also president and CEO of Telemark Films in Mystic, Connecticut. But I suspect he's got some passion for rum. Created this Real McCoy based on a film that he produced for PBS of the same name. And he spent 10 years apprenticing in rum and whiskey fermentation, distillation, maturation, and blending, and has a new distillery in Connecticut called The Lab. So Bailey, welcome. Can't wait to hear about this fascinating story.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm here in my test distillery right now. It's a small facility that we built for product development, new concepts. So we're working on this. I've done apprenticeships for a long time with Richard Seal and some other folks around the Caribbean and even in Scotland. And so I've been learning for a long time, and now I'm bringing it into practice. So right behind me here is our Forsyth still that Richard Forsyth's family built. They've been making stills for 280 years in Scotland, and so they custom made that. It's the only still of its kind in North America. But I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our brand, Real McCoy. If any of you are familiar with it, you can learn more about the product itself, our history, and the story of Bill McCoy and the Rum Runners of the Prohibition on our website, realmccoyspirits.com. We also have tons of videos and other very important sort of geek out information. You can really get technical, and you can contact us and we'll answer questions at the website. Also, you can follow us on at the Real McCoy Rum and all of our social media, where we talk about all these processes. And I appreciate everything I've been hearing from all the other panelists tonight. One thing that really stands out to me is the concept of the geographic indication and the concept of there are no rules in rum. The reality is, actually, there are rules in every single rum producing nation. That's just the absolute fact. It's funny that this kind of mythology about there's no rules in rum has been propagated for so long that everybody just kind of says it. But so far, everyone who's talked about the rum specifically has also identified the rules in their nation. Puerto Rico, Venezuela, there's rules in Barbados, there's rules in Jamaica, there's rules in Canada, there's rules in North America, there's rules in all sorts of places. So wherever rum is made, and yes, it is made all over the world, just like whiskey's made all over the world. You can go to jail in Jamaica if you make rum the improper way and then label it Jamaican rum. And so what we have to really do is get the European Union and the U.S. Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB, to actually respect and enforce those laws of those producing nations. And that's the real difference, is that you have products made in Canada that are called Jamaican rum, things like that should never be, but it is actually occurring. And so the Jamaicans, the Barbadians are fighting tooth and nail to get geographic indication recognition for their products. So if you go to Barbados, there's a clear set of rules that have been in place for more than 100 years. In Jamaica, same thing. They built a geographic indication there. There are specific rules. Martinique has the AOC. So, I'd love to kind of put to bed this concept that rum has no rules. I think what we should say is rum is incredibly diverse, and you can do so many beautiful things with rum, but there are absolutely rules to production in every nation. The next big thing is to talk about rum in more, I think, respectful terms as well, because rum in general has always just been described as light and dark and amber, right? So name one other spirit category where they talk about dark cognac. You ever heard of dark cognac? You ever heard of light whiskey? No one does this but rum. And I think there's specific reasons for this. But really what we're doing by calling rum light and dark is we're avoiding the conversation about how it's actually made. We're just sort of calling it light and dark. And we talk about palm trees and other things that are sort of more distracting than actually providing us any real information about the history, the progeny, the techniques, the traditions, the culture. So, we think, and we've been working with this for quite a while now, that there's a much easier and more meaningful way to describe rum in general, and not to call it light and dark, but to call it aged versus unaged, as some of the other panelists have already brought it up. Another way to talk about it is whether it's modified or unmodified. Unmodified means you don't put any additives. Like Real McCoy is an unmodified aged rum. We age everything you see, even our 3-year rum, which is almost a clear color, because we filter it just like they do in Venezuela at Diplomatico. There's a filtration process that doesn't take out all of the congeners, but allows you some really great flavors to stay within the spirit. But it allows you it to be a clear color. There's also the modification process involves adding sugars, wines, sweeteners of various kinds. Some brands add propylene glycol and stabilizers and things like that. That gets a little more chemical, a little more industrial, and oftentimes you never hear the brands talking about those processes. But in reality, I think we should know when we're buying something that has value, or it doesn't really have a lot of value. So you don't want to pay lots of money for something that is not a valuable product. If it's not aged and it's modified, it's probably not a valuable product. If it is aged and it's unmodified, that means it's incredibly difficult and expensive to make, and therefore it should be respected. Just like you see in all these rums that people have been talking about so far. Our friends at Mezzanine, Don Q, Roberto Sorales is a good friend of mine. They make amazing rums. Tito Cordero, I know at Diplomatico, wonderful people, make amazing products. And the reality is, if it's a modified product, people should say that it's modified. If it's an unmodified product, everyone screams that from the rooftops. They talk about that every time they talk about their brand. So if you're considering, how do I talk about rum? How do I categorize rum? How do I understand rum? How much should I pay for rum? Really think about the classification of, is it aged or unaged? Is it modified or unmodified? That tells you right there what it's worth, how it's made. It tells you so much more information than it's dark, right? Dark is just adding food coloring. Right. There are lots of brands out there that they're just a neutral spirit with food coloring in it, and they call it dark. So that's nowhere near what you find in some of these other amazing brands that you see in this panel. And I think that also with the geographic indication, being able to really have the respect for those societies, those cultures, the places where rum was really born, those places should be respected. I mean, we respect the laws of Jalisco, Mexico. We don't make tequila anywhere else in the world. We don't make cognac outside of Cognac, France. We shouldn't make Barbados rum in Sri Lanka. We should be able to say it's Barbados rum, it was made in Barbados, end of story. And I think that's just the way, I think all of our panelists would probably agree with that concept. So I think that another interesting component to rum is the fact that it is so diverse, and there are so many different types of people in the world making this rum, and they're doing it with different techniques, that those individual techniques should also be respected. And in the rum category, you can often see people sort of slinging mud here and there about this person makes it one way and that's right or that's wrong. I don't think that right or wrong is really the discussion. I think that the diversity is the beautiful thing. And the diversity in rum is what everyone is really saying when they say there are no rules. What they're really saying is, no, there's great diversity in rum. And those rules we should still respect, because like I said, it's not fair that there's 100% Jamaican rum made in Canada on the market in the United States right now. So those are things that I think all my Jamaican friends are probably going like this, I hope. So, and like I said, if you really want to geek out in the production methods in rum, and I know I'm running out of time, but if you want to geek out in the production methods in rum, I think one great adventure for you is to go to, if you can, go to a rum producing nation, try to arrange to meet people and not just take the tour, but actually talk with them about their production techniques. That's what I did when I started making my documentary film about Real McCoy, about Bill McCoy and rum runners of the Prohibition era, where I saw photographs that Bill McCoy had been buying his rum from Barbados. And that's why my lovely wife, Jennifer, and I flew down there and met with the head of the National Archive and showed them the pictures and said, which distillery would this have been? And we couldn't trace it in those photos. We couldn't say, oh, that barrel came from this place. So I called the folks at Mount Gay, and Frank Ward was the owner at the time. And I thought it was them because Mount Gay is so big in the sailing community on the East Coast. Maybe that's how they got there. And Frank said, no, it wasn't us. We weren't exporting until 1957. He thought it was Foursquare Distillery, Richard Seal's family. I spoke to the head of the National Archive. She said she thought it would be them because they were exporting very early on. So that's how we connected with Foursquare, and Richard Seal produces the Real McCoy rum now. And I think we've actually become the largest volume product that is made at Foursquare. So that's a great experience for all of us. I would highly recommend that you seek it out because everyone was so welcoming to me. I went to Martinique and just literally went to Rum Clément and knocked on the door and said, can I learn from you? I just want to experience more about this. And I learned all about the Creole still, the single column still, that you saw other pictures of similar stills. And that's what really got me on the road to understand, how these production techniques occur and what these stills do. That none of these stills actually add anything. The only thing they do is extract flavors. And Lars, tell me if I'm running out of time.
Yeah, you're on. You're out.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
I could sit and listen to you all day.
I highly recommend looking at these things online, and you can learn more about them and why these devices are used. So thank you guys very much. Sorry, I went a little over there.
Awesome. That's all right. Throw some links onto the chat section if you
Absolutely.
have
Yeah,
some
Billy,
places
great
for us
job.
to
And I
go.
learned about your product, Red 36, up at Mystic, Connecticut.
All right. Yeah, great.
There you
Thank
go.
So good stuff.
And your presentation number one gives me an even more greater meaning to the name, The Real McCoy. And number two, I think we're going to put you up for an 8th Emmy for that performance as well. Great information there. Thank you very much, Bailey. So next up, our next rock star is Gregoire Erschoff, who is World Mezzanine Brand Ambassador. He's been a head bartender and restaurant manager in England, US, and France. He is known for his master classes as an ambassador for the West Indies Rum and Spirits Producers Association. But right now, it looks like you're in the dark there, Greg. Where are you coming from
Hi there.
in the world? Welcome.
Hi there. Really happy to be here. Yeah, it's getting a little dark because I'm doing that from the outside of my home. So there's a scenery behind, and I had to do that thing outside of my home. But when it's a little bit with more light, it looks better, but I'm a little bit in the dark. Really happy to be there tonight anyway. I guess everybody can see me still.
Yes.
Cheers, everyone. Because we've
Cheers.
all been talking about rum, but I haven't seen any one of us sipping rum tonight. So I think we should celebrate that night. Maybe someone does, maybe you do, but I think we should celebrate that night by drinking rum first. So I just want to say cheers to everyone here. I'm drinking one of our Mezzanine rum. It's a rum from Guyana. It's a 12 years old rum from Diamond Distillery in Guyana. It's a single cask. It's something a little bit unusual that we do. We don't do much single cask rum, but after years and years, we decided to do some bottling of a single cask rum. And it's a 12 years old from Guyana, I say. It's beautiful. I love Guyanese rum. I'm totally in love with Guyanese rum. I had the chance to go to Guyana when I was an ambassador for WISPA, West Indies Rum and Spirit Producer Association, as you mentioned before. This is the way I discovered rum. I was not like the rum guy for many, many years. I was a bartender. I was drinking many different spirits. I used to be a cognac educator for a little time. So I knew cognac, I knew tequila, I knew different spirits. I didn't know much about rum. And one day I got the chance to be a part of that team of WISPA brand ambassador in Europe. So they got me into Barbados with different guys, like really well-known guys from the bartending industry. And we all got there and we stayed there for like a week. And I had the chance, I really had the chance to try over like 100 different rums. And this is how I got into the rum world. And I was really, really amazed, as people say tonight already, diversity of rum. It's unbelievable how rum can be diverse. And you can have like rum made from molasses, sugarcane juice, high taste molasses. They made from different steel, column steel, pot steel, Creole steel. They all taste different. And I was really amazed by that because I knew cognac pretty well, for example. I love cognac, but when I got into that rum world, I was like, blow out, it was like, wow, I love that, I love that diversity. So Mezzanine, which is a brand which has been created like maybe 12 years ago, around 12 years ago. They are independent bottlers, to make it like really, really simple. So they're independent bottlers. they're not rum producers. And when I went to Barbados and I spoke to all those guys, they were like rum producers. You know, I spoke to Richard Seale, I spoke to Frank Ward in Barbados, all those guys, people from Belize, people from Dominican Republic. You know, they got distilleries. They do their own rum and they sell it under their brand. So when I get the chance to work for Mezzanine, I was like, okay, I do it because I'm gonna have the chance to talk to people and maybe to make them understand what is a rum from Guyana, what is a rum from Barbados, Jamaica, Belize, Panama, and I was really excited about it. And so what is Mezzanine? I'm gonna make it like simple because we have to be a little quick in our speeches tonight. Mezzanine, it's a brand who celebrates the diversity of Caribbean rum. Why? Because we source our rum only in the Caribbean. So far we have like different rums, but only from the Caribbean. Then I'm not talking about like French rum, because so far we don't work with like agricole rum. Maybe we will do in the future, but at the moment we have only molasses rum. So all our rum are made from molasses, from different countries. As I said, we have like rum from Jamaica. We have like a rum, Mezzanine Exo, for example. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Mezzanine Exo. It's a blend of 4 different rum from Jamaica: Long Pond, Money Musk, Worthy Park, and Dun Distillery, all together in one bottle. So this is our blend. It's a Mezzanine Exo. So it really represents all the rum from, except Appleton, let's say, distillery, but it really represents all the rum from Jamaica. And our Mezzanine Exo is bottled at 40%, which means 80 proof. You know, when you get into like the rum industry, you talk to like a rum geek and they say, oh, Jamaican rum at 40%, what is that? Let me tell you, it's really interesting. I find it really interesting that you can try a rum with all the flavors from Jamaican rum, but like in an easy way, you know? Usually when you go for Jamaican rum, you want like a kick, you want something a little crazy, like Hamden. But that time we did a blend of all those rums and we made that blend like a sort of an easy blend with Jamaican flavor. And I really like this idea. And we use a lot that rum for cocktails and it fits really well for cocktails, definitely. So that's our Jamaican Exo. 40% for us at the start, all our bottling were at 40%, 80 proof. Why? Because Mezzanine has no sugar, no color, no sugar, no color, no chill filtration. So let's say they're like natural, pure. And the idea for us was you can try a rum the exact way it has been produced in those distilleries we represent, like in Guyana, Panama, Belize, and other places where we get rum from. Like you get that rum and you know you're gonna drink that rum the exact way it is when it comes out from the distillery. All our rum are aged in ex-bourbon cask. And let me tell you the truth, because we want to be really, really clear about what we do. Back of the label, you get all the information about what we do. The distillery, where it's coming from, country, distillery, pot still or column seal, you will always get the info at the back of the bottle. Of course, no sugar, no coloring, no flavoring agents. So you get all those information at the back of the label. So we wanted to be really clear about it. And one thing really important, we age our rum in the distillery for a few years. Then we get those rum back to England, where we bottle our rums. And there is a continental aging. So there is a big debate, I know today, you know, I go all around the world talking about our rums and like continental aging versus like Caribbean aging. At the end of the day, you drink the rum that you like to drink, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. If you like to sip Bacardi, you sip Bacardi. You like to sip Havana, that's it, that's your style. But for us, we wanted to tell you that a continental aging could be really interesting as well. According to me, it opens up the flavors a little bit compared to like 100% Caribbean aging. Not saying, of course, that Caribbean aging is not good. It's really, really great. I love like 100% Caribbean aging rum, but the continental aging is interesting as well. So if you're doing a little bit of both way, I think it gives you a product like really, really different than 100% age in the Caribbean. And I like this idea, you know, of being a little bit open about like continental versus Caribbean aging.
Very cool.
I want to introduce you to the Shiroki. Shiroki is a rum from Panama we have here. It's 3 years old. It's been aged in an ex-bourbon cask and also aged in muscatel cask. We didn't do that before, but we start doing a little bit of finishes with our rum, and it gives like really interesting flavors, of course. And sometimes it's a little bit more easy on the palate because we don't add any sugar at all in our rum. Sometimes to do a little bit of a finish in like muscatel or Pedro Jimenez, it smooths up a little bit the angles of what we do with like totally untouched rum, like the rum we do with Mezzanine. Really happy about the person from Real McCoy mentioned about like, not say real rum and not real rum, but like the fact we have like untouched rum today. Maybe it didn't exist much before on the market to have like totally untouched rum. But I think I'm glad we tried to do that our best with Mezzanine, to don't touch at all the product we get from those distilleries. Then you can get the expression, the exact expression of what the distillery wanted to do with their rum, not touching them at all with like sugar or anything else. And I think we try our best with Mezzanine to represent those distilleries through our totally untouched rum.
Well done, Greg.
Maybe at the end, I don't know, but you know, let's celebrate rum tonight. It's a spirit, we deserve it. And you know, if you think of Guyana, for example, Jesus Perso, the guy who created like El Dorado brand, I think he had that in his mind to create a really high category in rum. And maybe it didn't exist much before, but that guy, I think, has done an amazing job. And for us to have like great rums today, as good as like single malt or any other spirit category, like really, really good spirit.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Very well done. Well said.
Very welcome.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Bonsoir.
De rien.
As well. Good
Bonsoir. You're welcome. See you.
So interesting. You're talking about Guyana, another place with the long Caribbean coastline. So very cool. And some French influence there as well. So next up, next rock star is Alejandro Alex Noriega, who is the ambassador for Santa Teresa Rum. He is of Cuban and Dominican descent, so he grew up with the sweet smells of rum as well as tobacco, I might add, or he might add. He's been in hospitality since he was 15. So what is that, 5 years now? He's been in Miami since working at prestige bars, making award-winning cocktails. And I also happen to know he's a history buff. So I know you had enjoyed some of the factoids coming out. We look forward to hearing what you have to tell us about the history of Santa Teresa. And
did. Thank you, Lars. And might I say some serious rock stars in this room. I think I had the pleasure of having a dram with Bailey once upon a time. Probably doesn't remember me. I look a little older. I have a beard now, but yeah, big fan of Bailey. I love the stuff, man. But yeah, my name is Alex. Everybody, thanks for having me. I'm the senior brand ambassador for Santa Teresa 1796 Rum. I'm based here in Miami, Florida. So let's get to it, right? So just like my buddy Jose from Diplomatico, we're also located in Venezuela. Rum Santa Teresa is actually the oldest rum distillery in Venezuela, and we're actually the third oldest rum distillery in the world. We've been happy to say we've been in these lines for over 200 years, and the brand has walked through a delicate tightrope, of political and economic upheaval, for the most part. And then the way we try to stay positive, it was just looking to our rum and looking for different ways to really just tune it and refine the rums as generations passed, and looking at our ways to community just to relate to each other, during this hardships that we're going through in the lands of unfortunate, So fun fact, Santa Teresa 1796, this year is our 225th birthday, October 16th. So it's a big deal for us. We've been around for now 225 years and still going. We are a single state rum as well. We have a nice partnership now with Bacardi Rums, so we're moving forward on that end as well. And I'm also going to show you guys a little, I'll share my screen. I got a little bit of presentation to show with you. Here we go. You guys see my screen all right?
Yep. Just got to get it to presenter.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, it's freezing on me here. I'm sorry about that. All right, let me do this again. My apologies. All right, share. How's that
There
going?
we go. Perfect.
All right, awesome. Perfect. So, as I said before, Santa Teresa pretty much founded on our 4 main pillars. So I'm going to go over briefly. So we're sourced from single estate. If you guys don't know what that means, are tuning in right now, basically is everything is made on site. We have hands, ears, nose, everything to make sure our quality of the product is up to par. We're one family of 2 centuries of tradition. We're going to go through the process in detail. This is my favorite part for you guys, so I'm going to hide that one. And then, of course, our purpose of the brand, which what really makes Santa Teresa very unique and whole in all of its entirety. So, as I said before, here's a little bit of the origin, where all the sugarcane's water comes from our hacienda, and of course, our neighboring valleys. We are located in the Aragua Valley in Venezuela. And as Jose stated before, Venezuela they don't really consider themselves South American, since we are really close to the Caribbean. They are Caribeños, right, or Caribbeans. We're actually located in a very temperate region, right? We're surrounded by peaks and valleys, which actually protect us from hurricanes, and it gives us those natural winds to really uplift that torral and just move everything around, so the angels get their share too in our angel warehouses. We do have, some laws in Venezuela as well. It's true, as Jose stated again. We do have a DOC by law to be able to be a rum in Venezuela. It has to be aged for a minimum of 2 years. Okay. A little bit of the background of the history, deeply rooted. This gentleman you see right here is Julius Vulner. He is of German descent, landed on the shores of Venezuela, married this little girl right here when she became of age. Her name is Panchita Rivas, who, fun fact too, was actually related to Simon Bolivar, who is pretty much the godfather of Venezuela, the founder of the independence after the War of Independence. So very, very, very deep in tradition and very deep rooted in Venezuela as well. This family is. And we're obviously the first registered trademark in Venezuela. We registered Santa Teresa in 1909 by the 2nd generation of the family, Gustavo Julio Vulner. I had the honor of doing that. And then our process is, which I'm going to really attack. I have some cool little video to show you guys on how the process works, but just to catch up on it. Santa Teresa is actually one of the first rums to pioneer the Solera system, so kudos to us for doing that. We are a 3-style blend of rums aged between 4 to 35 years. All right, we use a column still and a pot still as well. And let me just get to that fun video, because this video is really exciting. So I'm going to be hitting play and pause. All right, so I can speak as the video goes, because some of it moves a little fast. So we're going to harvest our sugarcane between the months of May through November. So that's where we get all of our sugarcanes. Zafra sugarcane is what we mostly use. We're a Spanish style rum, so we are 100% black, grade A black molasses. We go through our refining, as we call it, El Palmar, over there in the hacienda, where we're going to separate all of the juice and the sugar, which goes out to market. And then we keep the byproduct, which is molasses, right? We're going straight into our fermentation rooms, where we have 2 types of fermentation, where we use continuous fermentation for our column distillation stills, and our batch fermentation, where we're going to get that fermented must and use for our pot still rums. All right. So the big difference of the continuous and batch fermentation just cuts the time and cycles. So a batch usually takes 24 hours to complete, versus the continuous distillation will cut it in half into the time. So keep moving right along. Here we have our distillation rooms. And as you can see here, we're going to have our column distillations to our left. This is a four columns, excuse me. And our pot still right over here on the right on its own. So the first column still is going to fill it up with our heavy rum, right? And that's actually going to come out more of like a peated Scotch taste. ABV comes around to about 83% when it comes out of the distillation. and then touches all 4 columns to get our light rum, or a light distillate, shall we call it, because it's not aged yet. And that's going to come out very viscous, very sharp, around 90% ABV, and our genuine pot still rum, which is going to give you that, all of those caramel flavors that you think of rums, all that sweet flavors, very complex rums that we have there. And that pot still is going to come around 73% ABV, which we dilute with water before we age to around 60% alcohol by volume, where we age in ex-bourbon American barrels. So now, if you see these barrels aging, how this works basically is we're going to have our light rums aging separately from 4 to 35 years, and the same way goes for our heavy rums and our pot still rums. What makes those very unique and very complex is we're going to extract, we're going to extract certain, there you go. We're going to extract certain numbers of years per barrels. Does that make sense? So we're going to grab maybe a little bit of 4, 12, 15 years of light rums. We're going to blend the light rums together into one barrel. Okay. And we're going to do the same now. The trick is though, we don't really know what years is. That's a secret to our trade. So then the same process goes with our our heavy rums and our pot still rums. That we blend all together, and we're going to blend it into our mother rum. So now we're going to have a blend of light rums, a blend of heavy rums and pot still rums, all blended together to go into our Solera refill. That's what we call it, or other. Okay, and then touches our Solera system, which is a 4-barrel tier system made out of hogshead barrels that we actually get them from Speyside. They come fully made already, a little bit of Scotch residue. And as you guys can see here, Solera is going to be the bottom row where we always pull from first, and then think about it as a cascading waterfall you guys can see here. And it's just going to fill on top of each other, one after another. We never empty these barrels until they're actually broken. So it's deemed fit that since its first fill in 1988, it was completed in 1992. The system takes around 4 years in totally until we pull it from the bottom barrels. It's always said you have a little bit of resonance from those barrels. And then we have a maturation vat made out of limousine oak. So we're utilizing almost 3 types of wood. You're gonna get a nice amber hue copper tone color from the bottle and then straight into our bottling facilities, which brings me in, and know I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna speed this up a little bit.
Thank you.
So, which brings us to our main focus, and for me, it's the people, our purpose. You know, you have great rum, but what about the people, right? So a unique project that we created in 2003 when a group of guys broke into our hacienda to steal some guns. Our current CEO, Roberto Vulner, gave these guys an ultimatum and pretty much told them, work for me for 3 months and I'll consider your debt paid, or I'll turn you over to the police, which naturally these gentlemen chose life versus life incarceration. And as you can see here, it was a very initiative that transformed the lives of criminals through the rehabilitation programs. We combined vocational trainings, valued formation, psychological assistance, and rugby was a good sport to really release the testosterone a lot of these gentlemen had. They never played the sport down there, so also was a good sport that they couldn't make fun of each other, right? It's a ruffian sport played by gentlemen. They had the ruffians part down, but now we need to make them gentlemen. So after this program, they're called Alcatrazes. A lot of these guys actually still work in the hacienda, in the bottling facilities, or growing the sugarcane, whatever they can do. And so it's pretty unique, because when you give a group of guys like these literally went through some hardships, and you give them a second chance of life, you're going to make a delicious, great rum.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. Great
Not a
story.
problem. Thank you.
Fun to be in Venezuela again. All right, so we're going to shift back to our first presenter, Maria, who's going to wrap it all up.
Hello again, everybody. Oh my gosh, so much great information. I have like over here, well, you couldn't see me scribbling all my notes here. I really appreciate that Bailey brought up the naming conventions of rum. One of the things at Liars, you'll notice ours is called white cane spirit, spiced cane spirit, and dark cane spirit. Why? We're paying homage to rum, but we're not a rum. We're Liars Rum, you know, a little double entendre on the name there, but we're actually named after a bird of paradise from Australia that is known to be the world's best mimic. I mean, it can mimic any sound, car alarms, shutters of a camera, your cell phone, anything. That's how it gets the ladies. We consider ourselves to be the world's best mimic of all your favorites from behind the bar. And I think it's really telling that while we only have one gin, and so far right now we only have one whiskey, we have our American malt, which pays homage to bourbon. We have 3 different products that pay homage to rum. And now we also have a ready to drink cocktail, our dark and spicy. So rum figures very heavily in what we do at Liars. And Liars is all about giving people the freedom, like I said, to have their drink their way, whether you want to make it completely without alcohol, if you want to make a low alcohol version of your favorite rum drink by, using half of Liars and half of your favorite rum, can certainly do that. And hey, you want to go full on and have your lovely sipping rum and drink it out of your Rito glass. We're there for you too. We're just taking the background. But when you want that second cocktail that you shouldn't have, you can turn to Liars. So I appreciate too that when John was talking about the variety of rum that's out there, I mean, you got to think rum is like one of those things that what other liquor can go in so many different cocktails, right? And John brought up that it can be used in a Manhattan or an old fashioned. And I used to do this all the time when I was a mixologist. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad he mentioned it because I was totally planning. Keep in mind, I drink these drinks afterwards. So, I got to make things I like to drink. So I'm actually, my last drink that I was going to make today is a Manhattan using our dark cane spirit. And then we also have a version of red vermouth, which we call our aperitif rosso. Our goal at Liars is to have something that is, different products that you can use to make a variety of cocktails. So having the option of that aperitif rosso to use in cocktails is really great to make it non-alcoholic. And I'm actually going to use 2 ounces of the dark cane spirit. If I was making a real Manhattan, I might back off on the red vermouth, but I really like the flavor of our aperitif rosso, and I think it brings a lot to the table. So I'm actually going to add a full ounce of the aperitif rosso. And again, you'll notice I'm not mixing this over ice. I'm starting with cold Liars. I keep my open bottles in the fridge, and I'm just going to add a couple dashes of Angostura, maybe a little more than normal because I really love the flavor of Angostura. Angostura has alcohol, but what it adds as far as alcohol to the drink, it's not going to be significant, right? It's still going to count as a non-alcoholic drink because it's going to be less than 0.5% of alcohol in there. Sometimes your orange juice might have residual alcohol that has more of that. I'm just going to give it a little stir there. And then, yes, we can be fancy. I'm going to pour it over one big cube there. Oh my gosh, I can smell it already. I'm getting kind of that sugar cane and molasses and a little bit of that burnt sugar and the vanilla notes that kind of mimic oak aging. Of course, we're not aging this in oak, but what we do is we pick apart all the flavors. Our flavor architect builds these from scratch and sits down with a dark rum and says, what are the key flavors of dark rum? And then he tinkers with essences and extracts and builds this from the ground up on a proprietary non-alcoholic base in order to mimic dark rum. So I'm going to add a nice wide orange peel to this because I think that orange peel, and if you wanted to burn this a little bit and kind of burn the oil and do the fancy like lighter thing where it like sprays little sparks, you could do that too. All of that is really complementary to the Manhattan. There's a lot of different reasons people choose not to imbibe. Some of it is health. Here's trivia for you. At any moment in the United States, there are around 7 million pregnant women. So if you can give one of those women if I could sell a bottle to every single one of them, I would be the hero of my company. But how lovely for them to be able to have a cocktail. I mean, if I'm sitting here drinking this, you wouldn't know that I'm not having a lovely sophisticated cocktail along with all my peers. I don't feel singled out. We do, in this country at least, we tend to stigmatize not drinking. And I think there's room at the table for all of us, right? There's room at the table for those that choose not to imbibe, whether it be for health reasons. Alcohol has a lot of calories. by the nature of being a non-alcoholic product, ours naturally have less calories too. And if you don't want to go through all the trouble of making a cocktail, well, thank goodness we have these now, because all you got to do is, you know, pop it open. A ginger beer, and actually we use a combination of our spice cane spirit and our dark cane spirit in this to make a dark and spicy. And these are like chill it and kill it, right? Go to the beach, chill it and kill it. So as you close out the summer, you know, consider that as well. Thank you so much, Lars, for including me in this. I had a ton of fun. It was lovely to see you again, and I learned so much, and I hope everybody learned a lot about rum and a little bit about the non-alcoholic alternatives to rum.
Absolutely. A lot of education here. I didn't know that figure about pregnant women in the United States. I did know that there are 61.5 million sheep in New Zealand. I always wanted to be able to sell them something. But wow, what a panel that lived up to its name. So I want to shift it back to the two professors and ask them, you know, what did you do on your summer vacation? What did you guys learn? How did you get schooled by this amazing panel? You want to start off? I don't know, Dodge, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'm going to start off. First off, I'm going to say sorry, my camera was not working. I've got to call Xfinity as soon as I get home.
Oh, we thought you were just being merciful to us.
No. Xfinity is going to get a nice little phone call. So I'm on my cell phone. You know, I did learn a lot. This summer I spent in Maine, and I did have a lot of rum and a lot of other, you know, nice little cocktails. But I did learn a lot, and I'm going to bring this to some of my classes. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies. I do appreciate all your knowledge that I got.
Fantastic. Professor Connors?
Yeah, again, Lars and I were texting back and forth like bad students do, but we had nothing but wonderful things to say about all of you. And I said, bro, this is a great panel. The diversity, the stories, the talent, the presentations alone. And I'm right there with Professor Dodge that the takeaways are going to be great. So if you hear students pinging on you or creeping on you on Instagram and everything else, you'll know that we're using this content in our classes. So much appreciated. And Maria, my pregnant wife, says thank you very much. So
there you go. Well, I want to remind you all that the Latin root for the word education does not mean to stuff information into somebody. It means edux, which means to draw out. And I think that the comments about there being no rules for rum, but there are rules for rum, that really was drawn out today and fascinating. There are no global rules, let's say, but there are definitely national rules for categories of rum. And I think that was certainly one of my big takeaways today. And I enjoyed that very, very much. And what amazing information that came up. So thank you all for listening, for staying with us. Thank you on behalf of the FIU Bacardi Center of Excellence, Liars Non-Alcoholic Spirits, Tasting Panel Magazine. Toast to Meredith May, our publisher and editor-in-chief, who's tuned in as well. Stay tuned. November, December tasting panel. We'll have the recap of this, and we will see the recording available shortly on tastingpanel.com, tastingpanelmag.com, as well as our Facebook platform for Tasting Panel. Join us in September 23rd. We'll be back to talk about a new year for gin. So a different spirit. And our friends from Bacardi will be back, and our friend from Liars will be back, and as will the professor. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you all, and cheers. And
cheers, everybody. Great job.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Merci.